This delta is full of life. Welcome to another episode of Pandora through a biologist's eyes. For this episode, we're going to take a closer look at a very interesting area that we can find on this planet, or especially in this game, and that is this area here. It's called Waterway Valley. It belongs to the swamp lowlands biome, and it is very clearly mimicking a river delta that we have on Earth. So this is the river, and it goes from this. It is the Threaded River, and it's also the Crooked River. So these two rivers, maybe three, well, at least two of them, they converge, and then they converge, and then they flow into this body of water, which I assume it is fresh water, but I'll go there in a bit. What is very unique to deltas is they tend to fan out. So the rivers, when they meet, it's usually an ocean, sometimes it is a lake area, they have those, they split up, and they have those different flows, different streams, and they have different sizes, sometimes different depths, and they kind of spread out in this triangle shape, delta shape. And they're very full of water, and they're usually great for animals, like they're hotspots of life. Think of the Amazon Delta, or the Okavango Delta, which is pretty unique because it doesn't end in the water, it just like sizzles out on dry land. So deltas are very important habitats, and they're very unique habitats, and they support a plethora of life. So for this episode, we are going to take a look at what sort of life we can find in these areas. And of course, like everyone on Pandora, there is of course settlements there, but also the humans have been there. So now we're in the middle of this swamp area. Although I don't have the classification on the top of my head, but usually a swamp is an area where the water is more or less stagnant, and generally, for example, the Everglades aren't a swamp because it technically is a very, very slow, like a very, very slow flowing river. So this area, because it is part of one of the waterways that come from the river towards this water, or body of water, it isn't really that swampy, but more like a probably slow flowing river. But we do have different types of these lily pad-like structures, and we even have those big ones that you can find in the Amazon, and I can stand on them. That's pretty cool. So there are those big ones that, of course, they were inspired by the ones we have on Earth too. But, being an area dominated by water, we can assume that this area is very lush. And what is really interesting is, of course, those trees with their stilted roots that look a lot like mangrove trees that we have on Earth. We already have animals here, like these fish swimming around, and of course, there's people here living on these fish. So if you ever get lost in an area like a rainforest, just follow the water, because water usually leads to people. And if you have a small stream, follow the small stream until you get to a big stream, and keep following that big stream. That's how you find people. Now, here we have something that is very interesting, because it looks like a carnivorous plant, like some sort of pitcher plant. And pitcher plants are types of plants, or that belong to, of course, carnivorous plants, and as the name carnivorous suggests, they do not, they of course take nutrients from the ground via the roots, but because they usually grow in swamp-like habitats with bad soil, with few nutrients, they have adapted to get their extra nutrients by trapping animals. And of course there's such things as those pitcher plants that do it more or less passively, so the animals goes in there, gets stuck and dies, and then the plants absorb it. Or there's also plants that do it more actively, such as our Venus flytraps. We have these little plants. These are the ones that the dire horses are like taking the nectar out of, but those pitcher plants trap animals by enticing them with nectar, but it's usually in there isn't really nectar. The nectar is outside on different parts of the plant. So if the dire horse would put its snout in there and drink it, it would just drink the more or less mix out of rainwater and digestive enzymes. So I get it that it's cool, but choosing a pitcher plant-like thing to attract the dire horses isn't really that biologically accurate, because there are plants that have a shape like this that do indeed have nectar, but it's not a pitcher plant. It's even called the dire horse pitcher plant, but it's a pitcher plant, and pitcher plants trap stuff, while plants that have a similar shape, like a trumpet-like shape, indeed store nectar. So now we are in an area that is much closer to where the rivers or the river arms meet the body of water. And as you can see, the forests are clearing up, and it is getting more open. The ground is probably getting wetter, and here we have our first life. These are hexapedes, that are small deer, similar ones. And of course we also have animals on Earth that are adapted to living in more or less wet environments, and even those antelope-like, deer-like animals, which would of course be our water bugs that you can find in Africa. These are just the typical hexapedes that you can also find everywhere on the Kinglor Forest. And again, they have those little 6 legs, so they're called hexapedes, and they're hexapods, which is like a lot of the animals in Pandora. What's interesting about them, they do have 6 eyes. Here we have some more pitcher plants, and they are basically the same pitcher plants. I actually have pitcher plants at home, I can put in a picture, but these are nice because they're purple. What is very interesting here, we have these huge roots, and they grow out all around the place. I have not yet figured out what type of tree they belong to. I mean, there are those massive trees that we can find, usually the home trees, but I doubt that their roots really go this far. But again, I don't know it. If you know, please let me know. But they're very impressive. And they don't seem to flower because all of the stuff that grows on them is more like epiphytes. So I don't think these little reddish ones are part of the actual vine or root or whatever it is. But they're very impressive, and they make like a nice walkway. So these roots do seem to... well, no, never mind. So walking on this long vine, we look at these roots, and they belong to these big mangrove-like trees. So mangroves are something that we have on Earth too, and they are a very important part of their environment, because mangrove trees, with their roots, they provide cover for animals. So usually mangrove trees grow in areas where fresh water meets the ocean, or along shallow ocean areas, because they're adapted to surviving in the salty environment. And mangrove trees are first of importance for the animals, because small animals, ranging from juvenile sharks to small fish, like small tropical fish, or plethora of animals such as clams, snails, and even some birds, of course, they need them for survival, like they roost in the tops, while the little fish survive down in between the roots, because they provide cover. And another very important thing about mangrove trees is they also provide protection. So they do help with weakening storms and lessening erosion. So having an intact mangrove forest can protect areas inland quite a lot, because they break the storm a little bit. And they're really important, especially also for people that live in coastal regions. So there's a whole lot of stuff about mangroves being really important. Coming back to those big vines, now we see, okay, so they do have those, because I think this is actually part of the vine, so maybe the vine is like a body, or the main part of the plant, and then similar to fungus, they have those little, they sprout out, having those mushroom-like structures. So maybe they can survive by, sapping nutrients, but when needed, they grow leaves too. It's really interesting. I'm not really that much of a botanist, plant person. Like, I do have, of course, know the basics, and I can interpret, of course, environments and vegetations and animals. But if it comes to specific plants, if you know what type of plant does that, if we have something similar to Earth, I mean, of course, we have those, I think they're called like strangling figs. They have a similar thingy, but it's still a bit different. But it's very interesting, and I really like it. So please, let me know. Here again we have some of the natives, and they're doing fishing here. And we even have some larger herbivores over there, stern beast. Of course, we have lots of flyers, and these flyers, with their decent size, they would make great food, of course, for our pitcher plants. Right, they just fly in there, and then, of course, you know, can't get out, and they get digested. It's bad for the animal, but it's good for the plant. Ooh, we even have some very big ones here. Those are the hammerhead titanospheres. They are the largest herbivores that we have in the Kinglor Forest, or the ones that I've counted so far. They're very interesting because they have this hammerhead shape. And seeing them here in this wetland, they seem to have the same, more or less, niche similar to elephants, because they also like to visit those areas, and they're very large too. Another animal that is very, you know, good swimmer and likes wet areas with more or less water plants are moose or elk, if you are from Europe. So our elk and our moose, they're very good swimmers, and they like to spend time in shallow waters and graze on the water plants. Now we're at the trees that are really a lot like the mangroves that we have on Earth, so they're smaller, and they have those thinner roots.
Is this place not a beauty? I could spend my time simply staring.
So if we look at those smaller mangrove trees and those big ones, they could of course be different species, or it could be that these smaller ones are just a juvenile version of the big trees. Can't really say for sure.
Do you want to head back to home too soon?
Must we? I would rather stay in the forest a little longer.
So now we are in the area that is almost coming towards the end of our delta. I'm still walking, and I can still run on here. And again, we have those pitcher plants, and we have our flyers around. Some pitcher plants on Earth, they grow quite big. Like, they're even able to trap larger animals such as small mammals, or even animals such as frogs. Okay, here we have a different sort of vine. They have this more turquoise coloring, but again, vines are very important to traverse in this game. So now we're in the area where we can look out into the open, and what makes me think that it is actual fresh water and not salt water is because we have seen areas where the animals are drinking water up on the rivers, and if we compare our vegetation, so the plants, we have the same lily pads that we have here, we have in the rivers too. Also, lots of the plants we can see underwater are the same, so by just using this, of course, we can assume... Oh, look, there's a little more life. We can assume that this is also fresh water. Of course, I can't be sure, because I cannot taste this water, which is usually a go-to method. If you're unsure if it's salt or fresh water, dip your finger in and lick it. You'll figure out if it is salty or not. That's a very basic method. Okay, so here we can look out into the body of water over there. And as you can see with the plants that are growing around, it seems to be more like a huge freshwater lake than it is, or seems to be, an ocean. Because the ocean that we've seen in the second movie clearly looks like an earth ocean, sandy beaches, waves, and not that much vegetation around. So here we're underneath, and we can see there's lots of life here, lots of little fish-like animals. We have larger fish-like animals. In this game, so far, they have not added any type of larger predator that is in the water. So, like crocodile-like, or if we have seen in the second movie, like shark-like animals. So being in the water isn't really that dangerous. So this delta isn't just a peaceful beachside, because we've seen a bunch of herbivores around. There's also predators here. And you can see them running there in the distance. These are scarab crawlers. They are very interesting because they do have this kind of like an orchid-like structure similar to a peacock's feathers on the back tail, their tail feathers. And we also have dire horses here. But yeah, here we have our scarab crawlers. And as you can see, this one is using its tail structures, call them tail feather-like. They use these, according to the game, of course, to intimidate. They're not the largest predators, but they they hunt in packs. And they are smaller compared to or at least more small and compact compared to the viper wolves, and they're definitely smaller to some of the plains predators, such as the cloaked panthers. But they do seem to be the only predators so far I have encountered in this area. And they can, of course, attack you and hurt you, but they're crouching, so they shouldn't really go too much. But as you can see, they're small and compact. And of course, their strategy is hunting in packs. And being in this wetland here, they have lots of prey that come down here to, eat. And that, of course, so usually if you see herbivore animals, that usually means the predators aren't too far off. Although in nature, predators usually have large habitats, so you have multiple herds and multiple groups of herbivores, but usually just a few predators in the area, because they have large territories that they defend from other predators, usually. They're very nice looking, look very interesting, and they have those snake-like tongues. They look like a mix out of a turtle and a snake. Yeah, this game, if you are crouching, they don't really see you, but look what happens if I uncrouch. Okay, nothing. I really thought they were going to attack me, which is great, because maybe I did something with the game, because usually they get aggressive. But that is better, because it gives me time to look at them. So like the other animals on Pandora, they also have 6 legs. And look at that idle animation, it's scratching itself. So they have their 6 legs. They show idle behavior, they roam around, they have their neural devices that they also use to sense stuff. And it's interesting, they have this beak-like structure that looks like a mix out of beak and teeth. So you probably can grab stuff with it. So I'll leave them be, and I'll keep exploring. But now we've seen what I assume is the major apex land predator that we have in this specific area of the delta. Now another thing that we can find here is our Helicoradia, I think it's called Helico. Yeah, Helicoradian. It is actually a plant, even though it looks like those Christmas tree worms that we can find on Earth. So they react when you get close to them. And then they retract. So the worms on Earth do this to, of course, protect themselves, but they fan out because they're actually carnivorous. So they fan out and they use those little structures that they have to filter feed. So small zooplankton are phytoplankton. So really interesting. We can find these types of plants all over Pandora, and lots of people know them because they're shown in the movies, and they're really interesting. So I hope you enjoyed that episode, and that maybe you've learned a little bit about this area of the Delta, and that some, of course, the environment and the plants there that we can find have been inspired by real-life locations and real-life plants that we have on Earth as well. And it is really beautiful, and it's usually just the colors are a bit different on Earth, but, our Earth is an extremely beautiful planet as well. And I hope you can, or are interested in the possibility to visit them, because deltas are really unique spot on Earth, and they're full of life, and they're lush and green, with very interesting animals and interesting behaviors, and of course plants that are specialized to these areas. So I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something and you found it interesting. And with that, I'll wish you a good day, and bye!